Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the ASI Hour. I am James Hartley, and this week is our health track. And I'm really excited this week because we have Lee Wellard, a good friend of mine, that has joined us. Thank you, Lee, for being with us this evening. Lee is someone that I've known for maybe 15 years or so. He was at Wildwood several years ago, studied here, worked here in the Lifestyle Center, studied with Dr. Bernal Baldwin and others. Had a great, well, at least we had a great experience having him here. He moved on, studied more deeply into herbal remedies, and has opened up an online school for teaching herbal remedies. Has opened up several herb stores, and just has extensive knowledge. If you looked at the promo that went out, you can see some of the studies he's done. He's even got his master herbalist, doctorate in naturopathy. So he's got extensive training, both from like the Wildwood side of things and in a lot of other online courses that he's studied in. So I've been at Wildwood for 20 years. I know quite a few people that have been into herbs. I don't know anyone that knows more about herbs than Lee. So I'm really excited, Lee, to have you with us, because it's a huge world. It's of a topic, and we're really glad to have you with us tonight. So we're going to have more of a discussion style, everyone. So Lee isn't going to be going through a long PowerPoint. I'm going to be kind of more interviewing him, and rather than waiting to the end to do questions. You can be typing in questions as we're going along. We're going to be looking at, top herbs that everyone should know, and how to use them and when and so forth. So if you have questions, please put that in the chat. And just a reminder, next week, same time, Thursday, 8 Central, will be the topic of ministry. And that'll be Stephen Grabner and Jesse Zwicker are going to be covering the topic about strategic planning, and their title is How Not to Do Strategic Planning. So if you're interested in that, especially for ministry, it's really good to be planning. They've got a lot of experience in it, so that'll be a great one to attend as well. So, well, why don't we invite the Lord's presence and his blessing, and then we'll get this started. Father, thank you so much that we could be here this evening. So grateful that Lee has been found time to join us. Thank you for blessing his ministry. I know he's helped a lot of people and taught many about how to use herbs. Pray that you would bless this evening, and we're just thankful that you are a God that cares for us, and that you've made our bodies in a way that with our immune systems, but you've also put healing in the natural world for us through water and herbs and nutrition and many things. Well, we're grateful to spend a little time reflecting on your creation, and we just pray that you bless this time together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, maybe sorry, but Lee, before we get in, there was a little poll I want to put up here. We've had different ones. This one I'm going to launch is a different one. Sometimes we look at where everyone's calling in from. This one is, what age profile are you? So that just kind of gives us a little bit of a feel of the demographics of those. Most attending, Lee, have been from the US, but we also have several international. Through the chat here, people will send greetings. There we see greetings from Chile, from Oregon, from South Africa, Canada, Maryland, Texas. So all across the US, the islands. So that is all from India. So that's exciting. Thank you for, I guess it's morning for you, early. So thank you all for joining us. And well, Lee, Herbal Remedies, something you've been given some time to study and think about these recent years. So what can you share with us, maybe as like a little bit of an overview, to kind of get us started about herbs? Why should we be considering herbs, And is it something that you see the Lord's would have us look into, especially for healing, or should we just, is this something we should be trying on our own, or is it something, only we should wait for a doctor to tell us, or what? Can you give us some perspective about a general perspective about herbs?
Hmm. Well, in the beginning, God created the herbs. It says in Psalm 104, verse 14, that God gave the herb for the service of men. And the word service means ministry. They minister, plants minister to us by giving. They minister by their vitamin content, mineral content, antioxidant content, phytochemistry content that is compatible with human physiology. So there's a lot of questions you asked me there, but that's okay. Basically, I look at herbs as under the category of nutrition, good nutrition.
Okay.
So they're like foods on steroids. Oh, they actually have steroids in them, but they're superfoods, And so you can take them for nutrition. There are what we call nutritive herbs. Things like nettle, for example, which is the highest in nutrition out of any food or herb on the planet. You've got turmeric, you've got oat straw, you've got red clover, there's barley green, there's many, many herbs that come under that category. And then you've got herbs that are specific for specific conditions, right? So, and some of those nutritive herbs, which I even mentioned, are specific too for certain conditions. But you take herbs as an adjunct therapy to a healthy lifestyle. So I tell people, herbs work better if you've got a better lifestyle, right? So they're an adjunct therapy to a healthy lifestyle. So if you're constantly abusing your body, yes, you could take a herb, and yes, it may help you symptomatically, but it's not going to give you long-lasting effects because you're constantly undermining what the body's trying to do through, helping it to maintain proper physiology, and that incorporates the 8 laws of health. So I put herbs under the category of nutrition, and they're very powerful if used correctly, if used with proper in proper amounts for specific conditions, and used in a way that the body can absorb and assimilate. They have very powerful effects. As far as whether each person should be determining their own prescription of what herbs to take, it helps if you got someone to guide you. Generally, herbs are very safe. There are some unsafe herbs, of course, but we only use ones that are considered safe and that wouldn't lead to side effects. And I think all the years I've been involved with this, I could count on one hand the amount of side effects I've seen from people taking herbs. Mm-hmm. And those are minor side effects. They're not emergency visits. Mm-hmm. They're not life-threatening situations. Mm-hmm. So you do need to be cautious. You need to understand how the herbs work, how they've been traditionally used, what they're good for, and just combine that with a bit of common sense. And I think for most people, if they do that, they'll see some results.
Yeah, well, that's great. So you mentioned even if we're feeling great, we're healthy, we have no condition, you would even encourage certain herbs like the oat straw to what, like drink the tea, or just to include them, and for what benefit are we going to get from that?
Well, if you're perfectly healthy, which is maybe 0.0001% of the population, then you probably wouldn't be coming to me in the first place. But if you want to just take that, would be a nutritive herb just to maintain health, right? So things that are high in nutrition, high in minerals, vitamins, phytochemistry. You may be taking something for energy, but if you're that healthy, you probably got good energy. Not many people have nowadays, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, as far as what form to take, it depends. The two best ways to take a herb are either as a tea or an extract, because it doesn't require any digestion. It goes straight in the bloodstream. Extracts are more concentrated than tea, so you don't need as much to take. But I'm in favor of teas as well. I think we could all benefit from drinking some tea, the right type of tea. But it depends what you're trying to accomplish. Some people take tea just for relaxing, just as a social pleasure. Some take it for just as a nice beverage. But most people take tea for therapeutic benefits.
Are the only kind of teas that have caffeine would be just like black tea and green tea?
Yes, there are smaller amounts in other herbs like Yamamate, but the green tea, which is the Camellia sinensis, that is where you get most of the caffeine as far as a beverage that we take. Yeah, so you get about 20 to 50 milligrams of caffeine per cup of green tea or black tea or white tea, Lipton tea. It's all the same tea.
Okay.
It comes from the same bush, Camellia sinensis.
So green tea is just the green leaves, they haven't been dried, or?
It's usually from the dry herb, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what's the difference between green and black?
In fact, yes, it's just, it's you get different varieties within this or different species with the same bush, right? Okay. So it's a bit like you've seen the red tea that is from South Africa. Mm-hmm. You can get it as a green tea as well. So sometimes they process it differently, and depending on what species it is, how it's processed, it changes the color.
Okay. Okay. But outside of black tea or the regular teas you're talking about, pretty much any herbal tea is safe to drink. It doesn't have any caffeine.
It's not just caffeine you have to worry about. Even with green tea, right? There's other things in there like tannins that block iron absorption. There's fluoride, high amounts of fluoride, especially from Europe. Then you have aluminum also that can accumulate. In certain places you have high amounts of radioactive material that are also in there. So it's not just caffeine, and so I don't rate a herb based on whether it has caffeine in it or not.
Okay.
There are some toxic alkaloids that are in certain teas that I wouldn't drink. They can have depressing effects on the central nervous system. So you have to judge each herb as you would judge a person based on its merits, right? So you don't necessarily think like a category of herb. You may think it's bad, but it's not always the case. For example, Ellen White recommended hops, right? A lot of people think of hops, they think of beer, right?
Yeah.
And so it's very good for sleep, but you don't have to take it with alcohol. But it's in the same family that you get marijuana. So cannabis, which is a general term, it's an umbrella category. And underneath that, you have marijuana, you have even oat straw, you have hops and different other herbs. And so
oat straw is a cannabis?
It's from it's the same. It's under the same umbrella. It's a Vena sativa.
Okay.
And so it's the same family. It's a relative. Mm-hmm. So judge each herb based on its own merits. So that's what I recommend.
So what would be your top 5 best herbal teas for the home?
Top 5 herbal teas. Now, is it just for nutrition or is it just for flavor? Yeah. Nutrition, I'd say nettle, I'd say red clover, I'd say oat straw, I'd say turmeric, and peppermint. Because, when people take green tea, they often take it for the polyphenols. These are phytochemicals that help protect against oxidative stress. They help to protect against aging, heart disease. They help protect against cancer. And so green tea is number 64 on the list of polyphenols, but number 1 is peppermint. And so if you want to get the best bang for your buck, it's peppermint.
Yeah, that's a great tasting tea. I mean,
it's a great tasting tea.
I love peppermint.
I'd say chamomile as well. I'll sneak another one in.
Yeah, very good. Okay, now that was kind of a little warm up. Why don't we jump right into a bigger topic here in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic? Are there antiviral herbs that we should have around the house just in case we get an herbal infection like that? And
yeah, well, you know, I probably have a little different position on this than most people you'll find online with COVID. But anyway, I'll just say how I see it. Coronavirus is the most common virus known to man. There's about 35 different types of coronavirus. And so it's not something that's just came out the blue that our body doesn't recognize. Yes, it's supposedly it's a COVID-19, it's SARS-CoV-2. Well, that's the name of the virus. The condition is COVID-19, right? But the body does recognize these viruses, and we've got an amazing immune system that God has given us. In fact, if you get COVID, you've got a 99.96% chance of surviving. So it's pretty good odds in your favor. Most people are dying from it, are dying with it, not because of it. So the numbers are often skewed. That's why we see cancer deaths come down, diabetes deaths, heart disease deaths. If you look at the statistics from last year, you'll see it was about a 60,000 death increase last year than 2019. And if you take into account the increase in suicides, it's about the same. So I don't think there's an extra 400,000 or 500,000 people dying from the disease itself. But as far as the remedies that we could use, there's plenty of antivirals out there. One of the best ones that I like promoting is elderberry. Sambucus nigra is the botanical name. And elderberry has many different antiviral properties. It's got a chemical called antivirin, as you can imagine. That would be good for attacking virus. Knocks out the enzyme that the virus attaches to the phospholipid membrane of the cell, and so it helps to prevent the virus from attaching. Also high in vitamin C. It's very good for the inflammation. It's very good to help with the blood. It helps also with digestion. It helps with the capillaries. It helps with so many things. If you have a cold or upper respiratory tract infection or flu, elderberry is one of the best things to take. Now, there's some information if you look online that is warning people not to take elderberry.
Right.
If you have COVID, and they say that it's because it could cause a cytokine storm. Now, I've read the original study on that, and basically the study doesn't say that. What the study shows is that it can increase cytokines. Now, cytokines are basically little chemical messengers of the immune system to notify cells, hey, I've got an infection, come over here and help me. So anytime you get an infection, you're going to get cytokines. So it didn't show you have a cytokine storm. It showed you have a healthy cytokine response, which is very, very different. So traditionally in viruses and pandemics around the world, whether it be the bird flu virus, the Spanish flu, H1N1, whatever it is, elderberry had a proven track record to help where nothing else has worked. So that would be my go-to herb. In fact, just before COVID was really taken off, I could see what was going to happen, and so I bought a whole lot of elderberries, and I could get it like $11 a pound, and when COVID hit, it was $11 an ounce. It's since gone back down, but people like me, we buy a lot of herbs, so we end up hoarding a lot of herbs in anticipation of what's coming.
I'm glad you're sharing this about elderberry, because I definitely did hear those reports that it potentially could be dangerous taking it, for COVID-19, but I didn't quite understand it. I'm glad you kind of clarified that. Someone's asking here the form of elderberry. There's chewable tablets. There's extracts. What's the best?
I'm not a big fan of gummy bears. They taste good, but they don't do much. But yeah, the syrup, you can make an elderberry syrup out of it with honey. Elderberry is very sour, but when you add some honey, it's really nice flavor. And I like to put some ginger and echinacea in there, because one of the best ways to get rid of a virus is sweating. And so if you sweat, and this is why running, it will be good, or steam bath would be good if you have a viral infection, and the body will just sweat it out. And so ginger is very good. It's a natural diaphoretic. It will help you sweat. And echinacea is very good because it will stimulate the white blood cells, the phagocytes, to come into that area and engulf those viruses. Look, viruses generally, they're very benign. In fact, very few viruses kill people because they want to live off a host. It's not to their advantage to destroy you. Yeah, there's certain people with compromised immune systems that could die from viruses, but for the most part, the vast majority of people aren't going to die from a virus. So just take care of your health. The people that are dying from COVID are people with 2 or 3 other comorbid factors, and they're low in vitamin D. They're low in essential nutrients like zinc. Some of the best nutrients are zinc, iodine, selenium, vitamin C, vitamin D. If you have those, it's going to be extremely hard for you to die from COVID.
We've heard a lot about making sure those levels are up. Are there herbal herbs that you can take to help elevate those rather than just popping a lot of pills?
Yeah. For example, zinc. You don't even need to take what you would call as a herb. Take pumpkin seed. It's a pretty good source of
Right.
zinc. If you want some selenium, you just been over there, Brazil, right?
Yes.
One Brazil nut a day, you can get enough selenium. And if you look at vitamin C, well, fruits are a good source. I actually use camu, which is actually from a fruit, and it's from the Amazon, and it's got more vitamin C in 1 teaspoon than a whole bag of oranges. Now, your body can only absorb about 500 milligrams at a time, so that's why people do intravenous vitamin C. But you don't need a lot. In fact, when I get something like a cold sore, I feel like my immune system's run down. Take some camu, and within a few minutes, I feel a difference.
How about for iodine?
And then vitamin D. Iodine, yes, we get atomic iodine. There's 3 different types of iodine. We use nascent iodine or atomic iodine. It's drilled from under the ocean, about 12,000 feet under the ocean crust. They make crystals out of it. It's drilled with these big mining drills looking for oil. And so we actually personally use iodine on a regular basis. In fact, it was the only thing that I took. I've always been slim, on the slim side. And when I started taking iodine, my weight increased. I gained like 25 pounds.
Really?
Just from taking iodine. And yeah, so it really helps with the thyroid function. It not only, most people think of just thyroid when you think of iodine, but it's got multitudinous roles in the body. It even is responsible for making glandular tissue. It's very important for the immune system, for the digestive system, pretty much every cell of the body. So we need iodine. If you don't have iodine, you will die without iodine. If you're completely depleted of iodine, you'll die. Same with vitamin C, same with vitamin D. It's an essential nutrient. So if you're not getting anything from the ocean, and you're not taking things like kelp or seaweed like bladderwrack or Irish moss, then you're probably going to be iodine deficient. They used to put it in bread up until the 1970s, and then they replaced it with bromide, and then the IQs went down 15 points nationwide. And so iodine is extremely important for brain function. And if you don't get iodine, you'll start thinking like a wet lettuce. So it's important to get iodine.
Now, vitamin D has gotten a lot of focus with the coronavirus. What
Yes.
do you have any recommendation on best sources for vitamin D?
Yes, if you're not getting outside, and this is one of the problems that people are having right now is, we're so scared to go outside. But sunlight is number one, right?
Yeah.
But if you can't get, you have to get it from a supplement, because you're not going to get enough from food, unless you're an Eskimo eating fish every day, you're not going to get enough vitamin D. So, yeah, that would be, a supplement. I like D3. We take a liquid D3.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on how much you're lacking, right? So really, you should be above 40. 40 to 100. Ideally, 50 would be better. If you're too low, your kidneys will use it all up. And so your parathyroid glands get affected when you get down to 40. So yeah, it's essential. So if it would be wise to take some type of supplement, especially if you're not getting outside so much. And you need to store up, in summer for winter, because there's a half-life of vitamin D every 6 weeks. So, if you're not getting enough sun, if it's 40 today and you don't get any sun for 6 weeks and you don't take a supplement, you're going to be about 20 in 6 weeks' time.
But so because vitamin D is not water soluble, you can get too much of it, right? You shouldn't take like a.
You can get too much of anything, yes. Yeah, including vitamin D. So it's hard to overdose with vitamin D. There's certain therapeutic levels like 50,000 international units that doctors prescribe to people. They did have a problem with giving 500,000 international units. They found it affected the bones, but 50,000 doesn't seem to be too problematic. But there are certain people out there, researchers. I remember Winston Craig, he didn't even recommend more than like 10,000 IUs a day. So yeah, just take it more regularly, more maintenance, and then don't get yourself in a critical situation to begin with. If you're down into the teens or the single digits, you're in a critical situation as far as being immune compromised.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that you really want to get it above 30. I mean, absolute bottom,
Yeah.
If you're in your 20s or less, you're in deep trouble.
Okay. There was a question on magnesium sources.
Yes.
Source.
Yeah, well, there's 11 different types of magnesium, but yeah, I tend to recommend people get it from either green leafy vegetables. Magnesium is pretty much in everything green, right? Herbs have a good source of magnesium as well. And there's liquid magnesium that you can actually spray. I used to buy some myself, a magnesium oil, and you could just rub it in topically and absorb it through your skin. So yeah, diet and taking a supplement are going to be your best ways.
So back to herbs now for viral infections. Would you say you're going to take the same kind of herbs for any viral flu or infection, whether it's COVID-19, another strand, or there's just the regular seasonal flu?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, when it comes to virulent strains, and we're going to be seeing more and more of these occurring, mark my words. So nature's always designed to get the upper hand, and this is why we've run out of antibiotics, because the more antibiotics you give, the more superbugs you're going to get. So nature's always ahead of the game. So the more powerful the medication to kill it, the more virulent strains you're going to get. So we have to learn to cohabit with the virus. Okay, we don't want to feel like we have to destroy every virus known to man. Regarding elderberry, they've done studies on this with many viruses, including AIDS virus, showing it destroys on a culture plate about 99.9% of viruses that it's been exposed to. So that's why I recommend elderberry so highly, because it's got such good clinical data and empirical evidence behind it. But there are plenty of other antivirals out there. I mean, you could take garlic, you could take thyme, you could take rosemary, and we could just go on and on. Okay. But you've also got to find something that people can take that's compatible with taste. Otherwise, they're not going to want to take it.
Yeah, that makes elderberry so attractive, because it can, you can get it to taste so good. But if you use syrup or honey, does the sugar have a depressing effect to the immune system?
Well, not all honey is created equal, and someone made it in the comment about Manuka honey, and yes, it's very good. It's one of the best honeys out there. It's a bit more expensive, but it's very powerful enzymatic action. Yeah, I like to use red clover honey. Honey doesn't spike the blood sugar as does white sugar, refined sugars. People think, well, it's high in glucose, it's high in fructose, therefore it's the same. Now, the body does deal with it differently. Not all sugar, it acts similarly in the body, depending on what it's combined with. Like, you could have high fructose corn syrup, and it could cause a lot of damage to the liver. It could cause a lot of damage to the blood vessels. But if you have it in the fruit, it's bound to ethanol, and it doesn't actually get absorbed in the body. It's not in a free form to cause a lot of damage. So it depends on how it's processed, how it's refined. I like to use honeys that are in a natural setting. I even like to use raw honey that's just crystallized. It hasn't even been heat treated. And they're also better for topical use as well. So honey doesn't suppress the immune system. Now, if you get sambucol, which is an elderberry syrup in a health food store, it has about 70% white sugar in there, and that will suppress the immune system. So it offsets the benefits. So, I'd rather just use the honey.
So where can we find some good honey-based elderberry syrup?
Well, I used to make elderberry syrup, but I stopped making it because I discovered that elderberry syrup can turn to elderberry wine. And so I didn't want people to be too merry on my elderberry.
You had to make it in smaller batches. Huh?
Yeah. Well, it can turn pretty quickly. Now, honey will not spoil, but it does ferment. So you got to be careful with honey. So I just make extracts now because they have a longer shelf life, and you don't have to worry about the alcohol situation, and that lasts about 3 years.
Elderberry extract made with glycerin seems to have a sweet enough taste to it.
It does, yes. What people don't realize is some things can be sweet and they're not sugar. For example, stevia is sweet, but it's not sugar. Licorice is sweet, but it's not sugar. My wife's sweet; she's on that sugar.
And
So it's made,
glycerin isn't
yeah,
sugar, right?
no, it's hydrolyzed fatty acids.
Hmm.
That's what it is.
So maybe we could pivot now to this. There's a question I was thinking of. Could you explain the difference between extracts made with glycerin versus using alcohol?
Yes, I'll be happy to. If I was presenting this before all the herbalists, I would probably be stoned for saying this, but alcohol is one of the worst things you want to use for extracts. Now, it does. It is very good at pulling out the chemistry of the herb, right? So it's good for extracting, but also, what is not taught commonly is that it's good in sterilizing, it's good in destroying phytochemistry. It can also pull out some toxic alkaloids that you don't want to be pulled out of the plant. In fact, most alkaloids are toxic, like caffeine's an alkaloid, morphine, cocaine. A lot of the drugs, so the painkillers are alkaloids. So not all alkaloids are toxic, like berberine you find in golden seal is not in that category, but most part they are. And so God locked up those herbs that if you used a water infusion, that you wouldn't get those alkaloids. And so glycerin, it actually doesn't pull those properties out, right? So you're left with, the non-toxic substances. Of course, you don't want to use a herb that's toxic anyway, but the advantages are using glycerin is that you don't have to sneak into an alcohol store, be looking around if there's any brethren following you around. And then secondly, it also is sweeter. It provides a great taste. It doesn't destroy the liver. It's non-addictive. It's 10% of people get addicted to alcohol based on their first taste of alcohol, and the alcohol they use is from GMO corn. It's vodka, and it can be generally it's between 80 to 180% proof alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 tablespoon of that is equivalent to drinking a whole can of beer. And so that's enough to knock grandma off a rocking chair. I mean, it's just amazingly strong.
It's potent stuff. So
Yeah,
there's a question here about glycerin. Just to clarify, Laurel is asking,
yes.
on some sugar-free desserts it says glycerin, and in the ingredients it says sugar alcohol. Can you explain again, just to clarify, what is glycerin? Does it have any relation at all to sugar alcohols?
No, it's not a sugar alcohol. Now,
I think she might be thinking about sucralose, isn't it? Isn't sucralose a sugar alcohol?
Sucralose is from a fruit sugar. Yeah, but
Or sorbitol.
no, glycerin is. I'll tell you the sources of it. It's either from soybean, it's from palm oil, or the other one, coconut. And they hydrolyze it through water, the pressure of water splitting the fatty acids, and you get glycerin with that separates from the fatty acids.
Okay.
And so, it's very compatible with human physiology, and there's 1% of people that have a reaction to glycerin, and that's usually like gas or some indigestion or something, but that can be offset by taking it with water.
And so maybe you could kind of explain how to make a simple glycerin extract right in our own homes.
Yeah, I just gave a week of hands-on on making extracts and different things. Yeah, it's probably, there's a lot of YouTubes out there, and there's a lot you can learn online, but basically all you need is a crock pot, and just get one of those pint jars or quart jars, and depending on whether it's a leaf or a herb, a leaf or a root, you either do an infusion for a leaf, or you do a decoction for a root, and you bring it to a boil, just like you cook rice. You bring it to a boil, let simmer for 20 minutes if it's a root or bark or berry, and then you fill up the jar halfway with the herb, and then you
strain it out of the water.
Well, you strain it. That's the last thing you do. You want to, if you've done a root, you're using water to cook it, and then you use that water to fill the jar to halfway. So you're using the water to fill the spaces of what's in between the herb. So you want to fill the half with water, and the other half you fill with glycerin.
Okay.
Technically, it's not half, because the volume is filled with the herb as well as the water, but it usually works out to be 1/3 water, 2/3 glycerin. You need at least 65% glycerin to preserve it, because if you get too much water, you can end up with bacteria or fungus buildup. So you want to be careful about that.
Okay.
But it's a good preservative, and you can keep up to 2 to 3 years. And if you're not going to use it, you probably don't need it in the first place.
Is that without refrigeration? 2 to 3 years? Yeah,
you don't need to refrigerate it. But if you're not going to use it for a few months and you've already opened it, it's probably going to help if you refrigerate it.
Okay. So that's, and now if it's just a leaf herb, same kind of thing. But you don't have to boil it ahead of time.
No, you don't have to boil leaves. All you need is enough heat to rupture the plant cells. The cells of the leaf, they swell and they rupture when you apply boiling hot water, and then the contents of those cells go into the water.
So you stuff the jar full of your dry herbs, like to the half, and then you pour boiling water.
Yep.
Till it fills it up.
Yeah, you pour boiling hot water if it's a leaf, but if it's a root or berry or bark, you have to decoct it first before you pour it in.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in both cases, you fill up the rest of the half with
That's
glycerin.
right. And then you put that in a crock pot and surround it with water and put it on low temperature and leave it for 3 days. And then on the 3rd day, you strain it and just put it in like an amber bottle, and you can take it as you need it.
Yeah, I've done this, not a lot, but I've done it. So does the jar have to be completely submerged underwater, or can it be like kind of?
No, just up to the top is sufficient. You have convection currents that occur just from heating. Even though you can't see it, it's moving inside.
Okay.
So this is why some people shake it every day, but you don't need to shake it. You just need to have heat that is under it, and it will move that liquid around the jar.
Good. Just one other thing maybe I could mention. I noticed it's good to have a crock pot with 3 settings: high, low, and keep warm. Usually I found the keep warm to be the best one.
Yeah, the warm is the best. It's basically about 150 degrees, which is about where you want it.
Yeah.
And don't put it on high.
Right, no, it boils. So you don't want it boiling, and it's nice to have the lid on it so it kind of holds some of the moisture and doesn't evaporate so fast. And you want to keep the water levels up and keep if you have a little water temperature gauge, you could check about approximately 150 degrees, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So I mean, that's not a hard process really. It just takes a couple days, but just to fill up your jar, close it up, get it in there, and you don't really have to do much with it. When you bring it out, you will have to let it cool down before you try to strain it. If you're going to be straining it with a cheesecloth or something, it'll be hot. But it's a thing that's easy, but and it would save a lot of money from going to the store and buying, because they can sell about $10 an ounce, right? Or actually the price of herbs have gone up tremendously.
some herbs I used to get over a year ago for like $30 a pound, and now $120 a pound.
Wow.
Yeah, we're actually. I'm concerned about this myself because it's my livelihood, and the supply chain is breaking down, and because of the lockdown measures, and the supplement industry is really suffering right now. So there's certain herbs you can't get, or very hard to get a hold of. I have to source from different suppliers. Like I was just looking online for some Jamaican dogwood, and no one had it. It took me a long time to even find 1 ounce of it, and it was like $16 an ounce. And certain herbs. Yeah, it pays to have some herbs on hand. I'm telling you, because when trouble hits, I'm going to be bartering with my herbs.
Right.
Some people are going to be stocking up on food, and I'm going to be stocking up on herbs.
Now, how long can dry herbs last? How long can you keep them around for?
Generally speaking, about 12 months if it's a leaf. It's not like Cinderella, the strike of midnight 1 year later they disappear, but it just means you got to take more of it. But if a herb has lost its smell, its taste, or its color, it's probably lost its phytochemistry. So if you left some herbs by your grandmother in a will, it's in the basement, you're probably not going to get much out of it.
So it's not going to hurt you, it just loses its efficacy.
Yeah. Now roots, on the other hand, and bark, they can last up to 5 years. Now, what we do is we keep them in what's called tight vac containers. We've got hundreds of these big containers, right? They fill up about 5 pounds of herbs. And when you put the lid on, it sucks the air out. So there are things that will destroy herb, right? Light, heat, moisture, light, heat, moisture, and oxygen, right? Okay. Those are the things that will destroy herbs. So it's a bit like when you go to the grocery store, if you see something going off, if you see it just, get a bit of mold on there, it's too aged,
Yeah.
So,
and
it's got to be fresh, and it's got to taste good and be colorful.
Powderized herbs would be about the same on shelf life, a year or so.
Powderized, it depends. If it's a root, you get about 3 years out of it. So, you really want to make sure that you put your herbs in some dark place and it's not too hot. It can be cold. It's just heat that's the problem.
Good.
But roots do better than leaves.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Lee. Now, I'm sorry, everyone. I know there's a lot of questions. I'm trying to grab them as it fits into this discussion. But why don't we move on to this? There's a question on arthritis, herbs that can help alleviate arthritic pain.
Right. Well, turmeric is a good one for that. We also have a formula called Pain Aid that we use turmeric with devil's claw. And another herb we use is Jamaican dogwood, which isn't commonly known, but it's very, very good for pain. We use a little bit of cayenne pepper. It increases the bioavailability of the other chemicals in the herbs. And red clover. And we've used it for all kinds, from arthritis to accidents, to nerve pain, to cancer. Had one gentleman, he was using a circular saw. He's trying to cut some wood with one hand with a saw, and it just backfired on him and went straight in his groin and severed his scrotum. And it was 1 millimeter away from severing his femoral artery. So his wife comes home and there's all this police tape and flashing lights and blood everywhere. And he was in a lot of pain, as you can imagine. So he was on some of the strongest pain drugs. So we sent him 2 things. We sent him CBD oil, and we sent him Pain Aid. And he said the Pain Aid worked the best. And he was pretty much pain-free after this accident. He was able to go back to work 2 weeks later.
What's in the Pain Aid?
That's the Jamaican dogwood, the turmeric, the devil's claw, red clover, and cayenne pepper.
Made into an ointment, or?
It's actually a extract.
Okay.
Now, we often use a pain salve for joints, for arthritic pain, and we use an infused olive oil with cayenne pepper, and we put beeswax with that, and then we put some essential oils like frankincense, wintergreen, peppermint, clove oil, eucalyptus, some of the heaviest hitting anti-pain, anti-inflammatory essential oils, and it works every time. I mean, I haven't met someone yet with arthritis it hasn't worked on. We sold thousands of these, and in fact, I offer people a money-back guarantee if it doesn't work. I mean, there's not one herb that works 100% of the time for 100% of people, but this is probably the closest we've had.
Wow.
It works within like 5-10 minutes. I mean, I've had people who've had like carpal tunnel syndrome, trigger fingers, they haven't been able to straighten their hands, and within literally 5 minutes, they're like, I can't do this for years. I haven't been able to do this.
All right, Lee, where can people get that? You saw?
Oh,
you got it?
well, we do have it. We actually formulate a lot of our own remedies. We've been doing this for the last few years now. And it's on our website. It's AmericanHerbShop.com, and the word shop is SHOPPE. So www.AmericanHerbShop.com, or as Americans say, herb shop. But we don't have any Americans working for us, so we say herb shop.
You might recruit some workers after this conference.
Maybe.
So
yeah,
you can,
we just
to make note, everyone can click on that, and it'll open up. It won't close this discussion. It'll open up a different tab right to Lee's website.
Yeah, we've had amazing. I mean, the amount of people that are seeking herbs right now, it's just amazing. It's very hard for us to keep up right now. It's just a lot of orders, a lot of people calling, a lot of emails. Yeah, people are in a lot of stress. I mean, with this whole COVID lockdown and people losing their jobs, and
right.
it's been very, very stressful, and so a lot of stress formulas have gone out.
that salve that you use that you were talking about for arthritis, that's just called the pain salve that you have?
Yeah, it's called pain salve. Yeah.
Okay, that was for you, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
What about, let's see, another question here. What about, well, there was a husband that had stomach. Oh yeah, my husband has abdominal pain and nausea constantly. Is there an herb that can help him?
Yeah, I mean, these are things that usually I spend an hour consulting with people before even giving them a remedy, but just general purposes for digestion, and this works with gas, and it works with indigestion, works with heartburn, works with intestinal motility issues, is chamomile. I use chamomile with dandelion root and peppermint, and we've had I think pretty close to 100% success rate with
as
that.
A tea.
We use it as an extract.
Okay.
I mean, you can make a tea out of it. It's just that you're going to have to do a decoction for the dandelion separate from the infusion for the leaf. But yeah, we just blend those together into an extract, and you only take like half a teaspoon is what I would take, and within 5-10 minutes, you feel a complete difference. It's just amazing.
Excellent. Lee, I remember some of the work we did together, and you know, I helped you in some of your weekends and saw some of the interest there. I know some was for our hormonal balancing. I know that was kind of something that's helped a lot of women, especially. Maybe you want to say a word of that. I know that's a common thing a lot go through.
Yes, yeah, sure. Well, we highly recommend Vitex and also red clover. for ladies' hormonal issues. So Vitex is more progesteronic in its effect, and it works on the hypothalamus pituitary axis that governs all the ladies' reproductive hormones, which would include follicle stimulating hormone, gonadotropic hormone, luteinizing hormone, which causes a release of progesterone, and from there you get estrogen and testosterone. So,
And you said red
yeah, we
clover
use
was
that.
the other?
Red clover is more for estrogen or lack thereof. So Vitex is more for like PMS issues, mood problems with PMS or depression related PMS, infertility. We've used it for fibroids, endometriosis, amenorrhea, dysmenorrhea, many hormonal issues with that. Yeah, every now and again I'll get a text from someone and they're trying to have a baby, and it's always a blessing to hear. Sometimes you get these amazing phone calls from people. I've had women up to 65 years of age trying to get pregnant.
What?
Yeah, asking for advice.
So it can help with PMS.
It's not for men.
Yeah.
Just to let you know,
Sure.
not for men. And you don't, contraindication. You don't take it with hormonal, like birth control pills or hormonal patches, bioidentical hormones, that type of thing.
Okay. But,
and red clover is more for like you're having hot flashes or you're lacking estrogen, your hair's thinning, menopause type situations.
Okay.
Ellen White took red clover on a regular basis, and when you understand what it does, it was, I think, divinely led. God gave her wisdom to know what to take, because it's very, very good for the circulatory system. It's very good for the blood, and it's very good for preventing cancer. It also has high amounts of isoflavones, which of themselves protect against cancer, and they can convert to brain-derived neurotrophic factors in the brain and cause synaptic sprouting. Also very good for men who have prostate issues. It can cause a reduction in the PSA levels. It can help with the enlarged prostate. It's also very good for the kidneys. It's very good for blood thinning. So if people are on blood thinners, often I recommend red clover as an alternative to rat poison.
Thanks, Lee.
Yeah.
Lee, can you give us some last thoughts here on CBD? You mentioned that. What do you think about that? I mean, you mentioned it, but how do you think we should respond as Christians to CBD being used?
Okay. Yeah. Well, most people are worried about when they think of CBD, often they think of marijuana. Now, I've used the one that's come from hemp. Now, hemp has about, depending on what variety, and there's male and female species, but they allow up to 0.03% of THC in there. Now, THC is tetrahydrocannabidiol, which is basically the psychotropic element of the marijuana plant, and so it can cause problems with the frontal lobe, and so for that reason I don't recommend it. So I don't recommend anything that's going to trip you up. Now, it's very, very rare that you would get that from CBD because it's very, very small amounts. So compared to the marijuana plant, it's like 40%. So, but you can get some from hemp without the THC in there. So the hemp is very similar in chemistry to the marijuana plant. All right, but it doesn't have the high levels of THC in it. So what I would suggest people do is just get a particular brand. I'm not recommending one over the other. If you push me on it, I'd probably tell you, but get one that doesn't have the THC. There are a number of companies out there, but that doesn't have any effects as far as frontal lobe damage or anything like that. Right. And there's CBD receptors in the body, and so God's put that for a reason. They're very helpful in mitigating pain. CBD oil can help with reducing the pain levels. It's anti-inflammatory. It also can help with the endocrine system. It can help with the nervous system. It can help with stress, anxiety. It can help with sleep issues, certain digestive problems. So I do believe it. I've seen results. At first, I was very skeptical, I'll be honest with you, when it came to CBD, because I'm always hesitant about things that could affect the brain adversely. But after looking at the science and also hearing people's stories, I do believe there is a legitimate place for CBD oil.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Lee. And thanks for being with us this evening. We had a real great response. I think it's some of the most attendees I've seen. So thanks everyone for sticking with us. Maybe we can do it again sometime, Lee.
Sure, I'd be very, very happy. There's a lot of questions in here I wish I could get to. Someone mentioned about the CBD. Anyway, you could text me or contact me, because I do have answers to some of these questions, but I don't have time. But thank you for having me on. And if anyone needs any help, please reach out and through our website, and we can help.
So if they can contact you through the website, yeah.
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee, and sorry everyone if we didn't get to your question. We tried. It was just a lot. By far more questions on this topic than anything else. They kept coming. So hey, before we go, I just want everyone to know that if you want to learn more and study more about herbs, and there is an online course that Lee put together in partnership with Light Ministry. And so you can access that. I'm just going to put in our website there at Light. Under our training, there's an herbal remedy course, and Lee is the instructor for that course. So you can sign in there to find out more about that. And Curtis just posted again the Lee's website, the American Herb Shop, where you could also look around and get some of these great herbs to be used. So thank you so much, Lee. Why don't we pray and we'll finish up here.
Thank you, James. Yeah.
Father, thank you so much for your goodness to us. And it's just amazing. There's such a world in the plant kingdom and all these different herbs and roots. Thank you for taking care of us and putting us here in a place that we can find healing in by such simple means. Thank you for Lee and blessing him with his experiences. And if any here that's been participating has been suffering from any conditions, we pray that you would give a blessing, give healing, give wisdom. If there's any herb that might be able to help, thank you for blessing our evening now. We pray that you go with us, and we thank you so much. We ask a blessing on Lee, his family, and his ministry. And we thank you and ask for this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Thanks again,
Amen.
Lee.
Thank you so much, James. God bless everyone. Thank you for attending.
Yeah, thanks. Good night, everyone.